Welcome to the Three Championship Drive podcast on YouTube, hosted by me, Lance Caporossi. Follow me on X at Lance Caporossi, the same way you see it spelled on the screen. And check out the Three Championship Drive podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button there and do me a favor, tell a Pistons fan. So I told you I had a good amount of topics for you guys on this one. I'm going to be talking about the Jazz trade, the New York Knicks trade. I'm not going to be breaking it down like I did on the last episode when I did the trade reactions. I'm going to be going a different way with talking about these trades. I'm also going to be talking about the Pistons signing a prospect to a 10-day contract. I'm also going to be this is going to be a funny topic just because the Pistons have been so bad this season. But later on in the podcast, I'm going to be talking about the Detroit Pistons version of the death lineup. If you remember the death lineup from the Warriors, I do think the Detroit Pistons have one with the guys they currently have on the roster. I'm going to break that down for you guys. And then I got two more topics at the end talking about the seventh overall draft pick and why a certain jersey number should be banned by the Pistons. We should just get rid of it altogether. But anyways, let's get this started. Did the Jazz fleece the Detroit Pistons? I seriously cannot believe that there are fans that are actually talking about it from this angle. It blows my mind because one, if you're going to talk about someone fleecing someone, when it comes with the draft pick, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer and see how that draft pick turns out. I don't think either teams fleeced each other in this one. I mean, just look at the game Simone Fontecchio had against the Los Angeles Clippers in his debut for the Detroit Pistons. He had 20 points, 9 rebounds, three threes, one assist, one steal, and he did it all in 32 minutes. Not to mention just being that guy that constantly was getting open and hitting that quick shot. He even had a, oh, I can't believe he can actually do that moment where he threw it down in that game. Yeah, he's sneaky athletic, guys. He's sneaky athletic. Like I said earlier, I don't think either team fleeced each other. I think the Utah Jazz, they did really well on this trade as well. And not for because they got the 32 to 34 overall pick. Forget that. They created minutes for Taylor Hendricks. I mean, with the way they were playing, with the way Fontecchio was playing with them, you almost you couldn't bench Fontecchio. Wouldn't have made sense. So in order for you to create minutes for Taylor Hendricks without benching Fontecchio, you traded him. And I think that's what this trade was more about, was just trying to create minutes for Taylor Hendricks, who was drafted ninth overall by the Utah Jazz. Even Will Hardy, their head coach, said he's going to be playing every night. We're going to get him minutes every single game. I believe in his last game he played for the Jazz, he actually got 18 minutes on the floor. So again, I don't think it was a fleece by either team. I think this trade, it benefited the Pistons and it benefited the Jazz long term to see what they have in Taylor Hendricks. And they cleared a lot of minutes up in that front court. So again, not a fleece by either team. I still can't believe it was something that was being talked about by fans on both sides. Now, for the New York Knicks, this is actually a little funny. The New York Knicks fans are having mixed emotions when it comes to Boyan and Alec Burks. I'm here for it, dude. I think it's just absolutely hilarious. I guess I don't know what Knicks fans thought they were getting with the Boyan and Alec Burks. I mean, you certainly weren't getting defenders, and they had to have watched them just a little bit, right? You had to know these two, they are constantly looking for their shots. They're not playmakers. These guys are bucket getters. That's what you're getting with these guys. And if their shots aren't falling, they're not bringing much else to the table. So I'm seeing a lot of different mixtures of emotions from New York Knicks fans. Actually, some of these tweets are pretty funny. And I'm going to find a few of them for you guys just because I do want to share them. And why not? It is kind of funny, right? So one of these is I would literally trade Alec Burks for a bag of cheeseburger Doritos. Someone's putting his stats up. It's 5 points, 1 rebounds, 2 passes for him tonight, disaster class for Alec Burks, and it's not much better for Boyan. Now, for some Boyan takes, they are a little disappointed that Thibs wasn't playing more now that Julius Randle is out. But man, both these trades, I've been happy about them since they've been made. I don't know why Pistons fans would be disappointed, but it is a little satisfying to see New York Knicks fans when pretty much the entire conversation since this trade went down is how New York won the trade deadline, and now New York Knicks fans are turning on the trade. So I'm always saying, like, you can't take that victory lap right away. You have to give it some time for these trades because I was getting really irritated with some of these bigger NBA podcasts just constantly talking about the Knicks and how the Pistons were dumb for making these trades. And as you see it with some fans, they are a little disappointed, and they're not Pistons fans that are disappointed in these trades. So the Pistons are signing Tossin E. Woman to a 10-day contract. And I gotta tell you, I'm a little interested in this guy. He's averaged 15 points, 8.9 rebounds, 3 assists, and he shot 39.4% from three for the Motor City Cruise this season. And the Motor City Cruise, they have been playing phenomenal basketball there in Detroit. He has played 4 games with the Memphis Grizzlies where he just completed a separate 10-day deal with them. He averaged 18 and a half minutes per game and even had a game where he had 12 rebounds against the Boston Celtics. He didn't shoot the ball very well. I think he averaged less than 2 a game in those 4 games for the Memphis Grizzlies. He is an interesting player, though, at 6'7". He's a solid playmaker, good rebounder, moves his feet defensively. The Motor City Cruise head coach, Jamel McMillan, referred to Tossin as the team's X factor because he can impact the game from wherever on the floor. He also went to the Sweet 16 with Princeton playing that point forward role. Very high IQ player. I just don't think he's going to get a lot of run with the Detroit Pistons. I don't think this is a move where, they're thinking that they found a crazy impact player on their G League team. They have an open roster spot. He's kind of fitting that narrative of what Detroit is doing right now, finding forwards that can defend, that can shoot, and can also snag rebounds. Maybe he develops into a 3-and-D guy, but again, this is one of those dudes. He has a steep hill to climb in order for him to do that. I don't think he'll have much of an impact in the game just because that role he's playing for the Cruise as a connector and as an X factor. The game's a little bit faster in the NBA than it is the G League. I think in order for him to even find any type of success with the Pistons or with any other team, it's to maybe not do as much, but find 2 elite skills that you can bring to a team. Maybe that is rebounding, maybe that is defense for him because the shot hasn't been falling. But I don't think if you're expecting him to be like a playmaker, a point forward for the Pistons, that's just not going to happen. But I am curious to see if they do give him any run, even though I think that last roster spot should go to Stanley Amude, and I'm going to save that for another podcast. But we'll see what they got with Tossin, a Woma. We'll see. We will see. Again, very interesting player at 6'7". If he doesn't work out for the Pistons, hopefully he stays with the Cruise and helps them continue to win more games. This is probably going to be my favorite topic of the podcast. And do the Pistons have a death lineup? Again, it seems kind of crazy when you say it out loud because the Pistons have been so bad this season. But against the Portland Trailblazers, we saw a lineup of Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Marcus Sasser, Asar Thompson, and Jalen Duren wreaking havoc on the Portland Trailblazers. Now, I know they were shorthanded. They did not have DeAndre Ayton. I believe Jabari Walker was playing a lot of minutes at the 5. And I mean, Duren feasted in this game. I believe it was 27 and 24. I, for some reason, had him sitting on my bench in fantasy basketball. Have no idea how that happened. But this is a lineup I want to see them continue to roll out to end games. So this five-man lineup of Cade, Jaden Ivey, Marcus Sasser, Asar Thompson, and Jalen Duren. They played 12 minutes against the Portland Trail Blazers. They scored 31 points. They shot 47.8% from the field, 40% from the three-point line. They had 15 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and they were plus 20. And if you look at the advanced stats, they are crazy. They have 140.9 offensive rating and a 50 defensive rating. So both are just ridiculous. But this lineup does show a ton of potential with these 5 guys on the floor. And it's just because you're getting so many different looks offensively from this team. Here's what I like about this team and why I believe in this lineup. And again, not to start. I have a different starting lineup I'm going to talk about since I'm talking about the death lineup. I don't want the death lineup to start. I want this lineup to be a closing team just because of everything I like. And here's what I like about this team. You have this lineup. You have 3 ball handlers in Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Marcus Sasser. And all 3 of those guys have playmaking abilities. They can create their own shot and they can create shots for others, whether it's throwing a lob to Duran or finding Asar in that dunker spot. Those 3 guards seem to know where the other 2 are at on the floor. I really love those 3 on the floor together. And it's cool because you have elite shot making from Marcus Sasser from the outside. I mean, he's shooting 48% from the field and I think 43% from the three-point line. Jaden Ivey has increased his outside shooting numbers and I think he's like 42% from 3 in like the last few games. Like he's starting to figure it out. He went 7 for 7 against the Portland Trail Blazers in this game, and I think 1 for 14 from the field, but his outside shooting is starting to fall. And then you have Cade Cunningham, who can hurt you from all 3 levels, who is also shooting the ball at a pretty respectable percentage from the three-point line. So you get those 3 guys out on the floor just creating things for themselves and for others. That can be a matchup for defenses. That can be a matchup nightmare for defenses. I even like the team's defensive flexibility in this lineup. I mean, you have a point of attack defender in Asar. You have another guy in Marcus Sasser that can get around screens. Jaden Ivey, he's starting to hustle on that end as well. Cade Cunningham, he'll never be great defensively, but he can be good to average on that side, and he can definitely be a good team defender, especially someone that can communicate on that floor. But it really depends on what Jalen Duren can do defensively, and he looked good against the Portland Trail Blazers. Again, they didn't have a big man out on the floor, but he was protecting the rim. He was calling switches. He was switching on guys. He was being physical to the point. I think he had 5 fouls in the game as well, but still the potential defensively for these guys is just insane because you can see a world where all 5 of these guys are switching or fighting through screens or finally keeping guys out of the paint with just that intimidation factor with Jalen Duren. I love this 5-man lineup, and I think there's even more potential for it with Jalen Duren exploring more as a playmaker. Like he had 6 assists a few games. He's had multiple games where he's had 4 plus assists in games this season. That playmaking is finally developing. Like he seems like to have his head on a swivel. He's finding guys cutting, he's finding guys in the corner. If that continues to evolve, this lineup can be real deadly on that side of the ball. Plus, this lineup also has 4 scorers. I already talked about 3 of them. I'm talking about another one. That's Jalen Duren. His footwork and just his finishing around the rim is incredible and just huge against this team. It seems like nobody even game plans for what he can do around the rim. And you also have 3 solid rebounders. Duren doesn't need to be mentioned. Asar is incredible. And then Jaden Ivey, he has been great too, especially the last couple of months as an offensive rebounder. This lineup gives you everything you want to close games. Now, there are some guys that I think you could add to the death lineup in replace of others, and still think that they would give you that defensive flexibility and some great offense. Quentin Grimes, we haven't seen him play, but I think you could sub him in for Asar Thompson. You might, I mean, he typically plays the two. So maybe you're looking at more of like Marcus Sasser for Grimes to replace, but he still gives you that elite defense. He's shooting 36% from three, and I believe 38% from catch and shoot threes. He's also a guy that has been known to finish around the rim, creating offense by basically attacking closeouts. But it's that defense is what you want. I think you could put him in this lineup and it would give you a different type of edge. I think Isaiah Stewart in for Duran could be real interesting. Now you lose some of the athleticism, you lose some of the playmaking too from that, from Duran to Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart's not as good of a passer, but defensively, you even have, I think you get better defensively with good rim protection from Isaiah Stewart and his ability to switch defensively and make things uncomfortable for perimeter players. That would be really great. And then Fontecchio, I think you could put him in for a SAR or in for either like a Jaden Ivey or a Marcus Sasser. Gives you a little bit more size, gives you more shot making, gives you defense. I really like Fontecchio in this lineup as well. And I do think he will be a guy that closes games out throughout this second half of the season. There's one more guy I wanted to throw in, and that's Troy Brown Jr. Now, I think it's a little bit defensively, it could be great with him in there, but he doesn't give you that kind of pop like the other guys do, but he's going to give you strong rebounding from the weak side. He's going to give you a communicator defensively and a guy that's going to fight through screens. He's just not as an elite of defender as Asar or Quentin Grimes can be. So I don't know. That's my death lineup. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about the Pistons having a death lineup in Detroit, even though this team has been so bad this season. The number 7 should be banned by the Detroit Pistons. It's a cursed number. It's unlucky. I don't know why they continue to hand it out to players. I mean, here's the list of guys since 2001 that have wore the number 7. It starts with Chucky Atkins, a personal favorite of mine. I loved Chucky Atkins. He was one of the first guards I started watching when I really got into Detroit basketball back in '01. Mike James, he did win a championship, so I guess it wasn't cursed with him. Anthony Goldwire, no idea who this guy is. Smush Parker, who dude dominated in 2K. Him and Anthony Goldwire looks like they shared the number, both wearing it in '05. Brezik, Prima, Brezik, I don't even know if I'm saying his right name right. He played 17 games for the Detroit Pistons in 2008. Ben Gordon wore number 7 from 2010 to 2011. Just didn't work out after he signed that big contract. I really think it had more to do with like the Pistons trying to make him a lead guard instead of letting him cook off the ball and come off screens. But either way, Ben Gordon, he also wore number 7, didn't work out. Brandon Knight. Now, if you're asking me, it comes down to him and one other player that wore number 7 that I think got the best luck out of it, even though both of their times in Detroit were cut short. But Brandon Knight, he wore number 7. I believe he wore number 7 because when he was drafted, he was like, I'm just gonna, I want all teams that passed on me to remember that they passed on me. So I'm going to wear number 7. I think anytime you wear it for a reason like that, it's never going to end well. Now, he did have a good rookie year, but he was traded for the next guy to wear number 7, and that was Brandon Jennings, who really started to cook as a player for the Pistons when they finally got rid of Josh Smith. But his time ended with an Achilles injury. Again, number 7, just cursed for the Pistons. And next, we have 3 other names where it just never worked out for them. I remember as soon as Stanley Johnson wore number 7, that was it. There was no more believing in Stanley Johnson when he put that number 7 on. Like, he had a decent rookie year, I guess. But I mean, if you're looking at the numbers, I mean, it's nothing crazy. You had to really watch him to understand where his game could go. But as soon as he put that number 7 on, you knew it was over in Detroit, and it did not last long here for Stanley Johnson. Then Thon Maker, one of the hardest workers that I've ever heard of. I mean, some of these old articles you can go back and find on Thon Maker, how he's just always in the gym. Unfortunately, very, very skilled. It just, I don't know if it was like the lack of IQ or the lack of size or whatever it was for Thon Maker. Maybe he just didn't have that dog in him, but he wore number 7 and I don't think he's played for another team since he wore that jersey. And then Killian Hayes, we all know his story, man. He wore it from '01 to 20, from 2021 to 2024, and he was just cut before he even finished out his rookie contract. It's like I said, it's a cursed number for players when they wear it in Detroit. I don't know why it is. I don't know if you have to bring someone in to lift the curse or whatever it needs to be. Either this number just needs to be permanently banned from Detroit, or you have to have like an exorcism or something to clean that number. Because our guy, Troy Brown Jr., is going to be wearing the number 7 for the Detroit Pistons. And look, I love this guy. I think he has a chance to be in Detroit for a while, but Troy, someone get in his ear. Please change your numbers. Don't wear number 7. Don't think you can break the curse. Just go with something else. Go with 77. Go with 17. Go with 27. Go with any other number that ends in 7 other than just the number 7 because it's a long list of guys that they just flamed out in Detroit, and I don't know why. Even when they came in with potential, it just doesn't work out. The number 7 does something to a player when they wear it. Please, Troy Brown Jr., change it. But speaking of numbers, I'm going to give you guys an update for all the numbers the new Pistons are going to wear. Evan Fournier is going to be wearing number 31. By the way, you cannot convince me. I am going to die on this hill. I think Evan Fournier is going to get buckets for the Detroit Pistons if he gets the opportunity. And if you don't believe me and you're saying, oh, he's washed, go look at his international numbers from this past offseason when he played for Team France in 23. I believe he averaged like 21 or 23 points per game. Now, it was over only like 3 games, but it goes to show you that Duke can still get buckets. I'm not dying. I am dying on this hill. Evan Fournier will be a player for the Detroit Pistons. He's going to do it with number 31. Malachi Flynn will wear number 18. Shake Milton will wear number 5. There's a crazy story. I guess it's not even a crazy story, but it's about the number 5. Number 1, it's the most worn jersey by anybody that's ever played for the Pistons. I think it's like 25 or 27 players have wore. Actually, let me pull this up. The number 5 has been worn by, 25 players. That's hilarious. It's the most worn jersey in Detroit Pistons history. But Monte Morris, when he came to Detroit, he bought the number 5 from Alec Burks, who went with number 14 for his final year in Detroit. I don't know if there's less games played by a guy that paid for a jersey than Monte Morris. He only got 6 games in it. Doesn't need to be retired, but it might hang in the rafters somewhere as least amount of games played after purchasing a jersey. Fontecchio will wear number 19. I wish you kind of went with number 9 so we could call him Tech 9. Grimes is going with number 24. Then Troy Brown Jr. is going with the curse number 7. Maybe he'll break the curse. I have no idea. We'll see if he does. I'm rooting for him because it's just a disgusting number in Detroit. Even though I think number 7 actually does look good on the jersey, it's just a curse number here in Detroit. So my man Chubbs, fan of the show, he called me out. I want to say last week after he got done listening to the Killian Hayes era is done in Detroit, which we talked which I talked about before he was waived by the Pistons. I still think there's some good replay value on that if you guys wanna go check out that episode on Spotify, Google, or Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Still think there's some good moments in there. So anyways, my man Chubbs, he called me out and asked me, "What does a number 7 overall pick, what is it supposed to look like?" Now, anytime I think of a top 10 player or a guy drafted in the top 10, I instantly think like, dude, I mean, the goal should be at least a minimum of one all-star appearance. And if you're drafted in the top 10, meaning the situation you're going to, they most likely need you. And if you really can't get off the bench and get minutes, it's going to be terrible. But I feel like most top 10 picks should be getting minutes their rookie year, unless it's like the Warriors where they just had a ton of injuries and they ended up drafting James Wiseman number 2, even though they weren't really a lottery team. They were just hit with injuries that year. But I do think most guys should be getting off the bench. So with that being said, I think throughout your career, you should at least have one all-star appearance, and I think you should be in the running to make an all-rookie first or second team, which is something we didn't get with Killian Hayes. But anyways, when I did my research, since 1995 players have been drafted with the 7th pick have been all-stars. That's Richard Hamilton, Luol Deng, Steph Curry, Julius Randle, Lauri Markkanen. Now, there are other guys that had good careers being drafted 7th overall. Damon Stoudemire, he was rookie of the year. He dude, he was amazing for the Toronto Raptors. But then when I went back and looked, I went to the 1970 draft. There's a few more all-stars that have been drafted. Kevin Johnson, Chris Mullin, Allen Robertson, Steven Johnson, Bernard King, and I'm blanking on the last guy's name. I think his name was like John Johnson or James Johnson or something like that for, I believe, the Atlanta Hawks. He was a two-time All-Star for his rookie and second year. So being an All-Star with the as the 7th overall pick, I think it's expected or at least to play 10 years in the NBA. So that's my take on what a 7th overall pick should be. You should be at least an all-star playing or a very high-end role player like a guy like Eric Gordon was. Or, man, I wish I had the list of all 7th overall picks. Give me a second. I'm going to pull this up because I did have it saved on my computer. So now that I'm looking at it, like Jonathan Kaminga, he's looking great. Colby White, he's looking great for the Chicago Bulls. He looks like he's going to be a solid player. Jamal Murray, I can't believe I forgot about him. He's looking real great, and he is an NBA champion with the Denver Nuggets, and he's probably going to be go down as one of these guys that deserve to make an All-Star appearance because of the era he played in. He's probably not going to make one. Harrison Barnes, he was a solid role player for the Golden State Warriors, part of that death lineup we were talking about earlier. Kirk Heinrich, Nene, those are some of the other names drafted 7th overall. I don't know. I really like the 7th overall pick. I think you can get some great players, whether they become an all-star or not. But again, the whole purpose of this topic was just to say, what is a 7th overall pick supposed to look like? And in my opinion, we're talking close to 10 years played in the NBA. You should at least get 10 years if you're the 7th overall pick. You should be averaging double figures. And most likely, you should have been I mean, I shouldn't even say you should be an all-star, but at some point in your career, you should be in the running for it if you're being if you're being drafted this high in the NBA draft, because there's a ton of examples with the 7th overall pick that have become all-stars. But anyways, Chubbs, thanks for the question. I hope I did it justice by answering it the way that I did. Again, I do appreciate your support. And thank you guys for listening to the 3 Championship Drive podcast. Do me a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, vote in our polls, and more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.